So I consider myself a serial entrepreneur. Whether it's the fact that my grandfather was a business owner, he owned a septic tank and sanitation service. Sounds glorious, right? But it actually was really cool. Or whether it's my uncles that have owned air conditioning companies off and on for as long as I've known them. But I think it's the idea of controlling my own fate and contributing to my own well-being. I've started businesses, I've closed businesses, I've lost businesses in 2008. I'm currently working on a few. Whatever it may be, the bottom line is I just can't stop that entrepreneurial spirit. But it's taken some time to build up the desire and the willingness and the ability to put things out on the line to expose myself. So I guess I'm here to ask you all, what's holding you back from chasing your dreams? Whether it's a business, a career, a job, relationship. So today I'm asking you to join me on this journey as I explore what might be holding you back from your dreams of being the best you, and ultimately provide some tips today for you to consider. Thanks for tuning in to Eli's Echo. This is your host, Eli Albalos. So before I start, for those that follow me on Facebook, I've started something that I call Tell Me Something Good. Something that I started for at work on a Monday morning in my weekly meeting, and I just kind of threw it out there. Hey, everybody, tell me something good. I think we all get caught up in the busyness, and when it comes to Mondays, sometimes we're just not quite motivated to get things going. So I started this Tell Me Something Good. So today, my Tell Me Something Good to all of you is I finished my Chapter 1 dissertation draft. That's right. I am in a doctoral program. For those that aren't aware, I'm a doctoral candidate, and I'm starting the dissertation process in my second year of the program. And I finished my Chapter 1 draft, which is super exciting, but I call it a draft because working with my chair, I'm probably going to have to rewrite it a few times. That's just the way it goes. But I dedicated the past 3 days to it, and I probably invested about 10 hours into it. So huge load off. That's like Chapter 1, first chapter, of 5 that I'm going to finish over the next year and a half. So that's number one, Tell Me Something Good. So it feels really, really great. Number two is I launched a website for one of my companies. I talked about having a few companies that I'm started. I launched a website for one of them, and I will come back to that website, but it's lionconsolera.com. I will put the description I'll put the link in the description below so you can all follow that. But again, as I've been talking a little bit about starting a consulting business, that's the one. So I finally got it launched. But I'll come back to that because it's actually really relevant to today's conversation. But those are two Tell Me Something Goods. So as we kick off, I'm going to pause real quick. I need to take a drink here mid-conversation. For those that are watching me on YouTube, I am not sponsored by Monster Drink, but man, I may as well have an IV that infuses Monster Drink into my veins because I just need it. So anyhow, as we start today's message, my question is, are you chasing your dreams? I think whether it's a business, starting a new job, reconsidering an old job, or it's a hobby, I think it's worthwhile asking ourselves now and then, are we chasing something are we chasing our dreams? Are we chasing something that we're actually passionate about? And if we're not chasing it, and if we're not seeking that, then my question is, if not, why not? I'm in my mid 40s myself, and I kind of, the way I kind of say things is, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Again, I don't know if it's this serial entrepreneur spirit where like I'm constantly trying to figure out what's that next passion for me, or I just can't sit still, right? I kind of tell people that like I can't sit still. Whenever there's free time, I find something to fill it. Yeah, maybe that's just part of my personality, but maybe really it is just me trying to seek the passion, the one thing that I really enjoy. And so the question, I guess, for you all listening, are you even trying to do what you really want to? right? And I think that's kind of, I'll boomerang that question back to me. I work in tech. For those that have been following for a while, know I've been in the tech industry going on 10 plus years. I've had a great opportunity in my experience in my career where I've worked for Apple, I've worked for Facebook before it was Meta, worked for Facebook, and I'm currently working at Google, and I love it. But it doesn't mean I'm done, right? I love those jobs. I love my current job at Google. I don't see myself going anywhere. If anything, I'm still trying to develop my career in the company, but I still have these other things on the side because I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So, for you all out there, is there something holding you back? When I've, through all my experiences, I've dabbled in all kinds of things, like literally everything from almost going back in the way back machine, nearly 20 years ago-ish. I was thinking about starting a bounce house business. And this was before bounce houses got really popular. So like I was in it. I was like, I was in law enforcement at the time. And so even then, like back then, 20 years ago, before bounce houses got popular, like I wasn't looking into bounce houses. And I really couldn't get it going because I actually didn't have the capital to start. I'm going to talk about a list of suggestions and things to think about. But I'm just giving you kind of hints and ideas of what I've been through where I didn't kind of chase these dreams. I didn't chase these ideas. And sometimes I did. The bounce house was one. I didn't have capital to start it. So it kind of just went to the wayside. Lo and behold, 3 or 4 years later, boom, there's like bounce house companies everywhere. So I'm like, I missed the boat on that one. I started a CrossFit gym. In 2008, my wife and I started a CrossFit gym. We all know, worst time to start a gym at the time. We didn't realize that, but we did it. We invested a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, lots of tears, lots of hours, but we did it and we made it run for a couple years, but we had to close it. Just a handful of years ago, I had a rental company business when, as part of my ranch, I had a bunch of equipment, trailers and tractors and welding machines and ladders and huge ladders and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I have all this stuff around that I've been procuring for my ranch, but I was like, when I'm not using it, the stuff is kind of just sitting here. So I started a rental company business, which is actually kind of good because it helped me really afford a lot of the equipment I was buying and led to a lot of tax advantages. But again, I was dabbling in that. Now I have a full-time job. I'm still working at Google. That's the full-time job, but I'm still looking into like a consulting company. I'll touch on it just a little bit to plug it, but a little bit there. Now I'm doing this podcast and blog. I don't know where it's going to go, but I really, really enjoy it. At the same time, I'm also starting a Bitcoin ATM company. I'm going to touch on that here in a little bit as well. All this stuff is relevant. But ultimately, the me using all my examples, I take time and effort to find those new desires, to find what I want to try and do. Sometimes I'm able to do it. Sometimes I can't. Like the bounce house company 20 years ago, I just couldn't. I couldn't come up with the means and the way to figure out how to launch that business. If I had the experience and the skills I do now, probably would have been a different story, which is going to be one of the relevant tips I give to you here in a minute. But just when you're looking at the laundry list of possibilities in front of you, if it's changing careers, changing jobs, seeking businesses, I think is ultimately ask yourself, are you chasing your desires? Are you seeking your passions? And I think we can all testify to that saying that's out there is, at the end of the day, when we've lived our long life, most people regret the things they didn't do rather than the things they did. And I think for me, I don't want to have any regret for not pursuing a passion or a desire. Now, don't get me wrong. There are limits to life. Bottom line is there are going to be restrictions. There's going to be obstacles. But there's some stuff that can be overcome that really necessarily isn't an obstacle, but we make it an obstacle. So as we're moving into this message here is ask yourself, like, what are your desires? Like I have some really amazing cousins out there. And like one of my cousins, his desire and passion is bee products, like B-E-E, buzz, B-B-B, honeybee, right? Like he like has, a beekeeping business on the side that he does. And he, has like lip gloss and bee products and wax and he just loves it. But it's interesting hearing him talk about that business. It's so cool. Now, it doesn't, at this point, it hasn't got to the point where it sustains his livelihood, but he loves doing it. And I see all this stuff on Facebook. It's amazing. I have another cousin that just recently started an RC car page, like remote control car page, but like really cool, fast remote control cars. Not the old days where we have this little control and a little wire. Like, no, like these are like fast stuff. But it's like really cool. And he takes pictures and there's profile pictures of these cars that look like they're like real life cars, but they're not. They're like RC cars. But it's super amazing. So as you're considering your passions and your dreams, they don't have to be huge. They don't have to be big. Now, depending on that passion and dream, could there be a financial pipeline down the road that can lead to something bigger? Absolutely. But it doesn't need to start that way, right? You can start small, and those small things can lead to big things. A, if you find the right niche. B, if you do it the right way. And C, if you're just timing the market correctly. Like there's tons of stories out there where people make these passions, their dreams, into a solid financial future. But that's where now I'm starting with the tips for you all. If you're considering, like, if you really aren't pursuing those dreams, if you feel like you just haven't given enough energy and thought to doing something that you really love, even if it's small and minor on the side, like an RC car page or a honey business, or something larger, like a money services business, a Bitcoin ATM business, what's up on is something that I'm starting. But I think there's tips out there that I think will maybe help some folks to understand and consider how do they break past this barrier of holding themselves back. So first tip, find your passion, right? So people say that you can't make money following your passion. Of course you can. Like one of my passions, not to say I'm gonna make money on it, but one of my passions is I like helping people. Now, I'm sure I can find a way to make money helping people. The question is, are you living a life that your passion can support? So if you're happy being a beekeeper, but you don't make a lot of money doing it, are you willing to be frugal enough to pay for your lifestyle on the salary a beekeeper would make? I don't know what they make. Maybe they make a ton of money. Maybe I'm wrong. But ultimately, you need to decide. So that's tip number one, is find that passion. Don't listen to the naysayers out there that say you can't make money on it. The other thing is, you don't necessarily need to be in it for the money. You can still have your full-time job. I work in corporate, and I still have all these other passion projects, all these other side projects that I'm still investing time in because I want to. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me energized. And trust me, if we're using that workplace example, if I can be energized and motivated outside of work, that energy has bled into my work. And I can 100% guarantee that because I'm trying to find my passion. I'm investing in my passion. Tip number one. Tip number two, it doesn't need to be grandiose or perfect at the start. So let's say that your passion is wildlife and you just love being out there in nature, but you can't pay the bills doing that right now. So volunteer, right? It doesn't need to be huge or perfect. Volunteer with all these natural preservation societies that are out there and just volunteer time on the weekend, right? If that's your passion. Set up a Facebook group, right? So you start volunteering, meet some friends, set up a Facebook group. If you have any of your social circles, be it church, friends that you always connect with, start sharing that passion with them. You never know. Maybe one of them may be interested in nature, right? But it doesn't have to be huge, and it definitely doesn't have to be perfect. So what I mean is, let's say you do want to go down the route of starting a business. And let's go down this path of natural, preservation, because I threw it out there and we're going to try and work with this example. But let's say if you wanted to start a business, and let's say your business was, let's say you live in Oregon or even California, and you're really good about knowing the hot spots, if you will, to camp, or you know the ins and outs of some of these hills and mountains to get to some of these beautiful rivers that are just serene, where anybody would love to be at, but people maybe just don't know about it. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be grandiose. Start a little business that you do on the side where you take 1 or 2 clients out in nature. Maybe you provide them with the camping skills that they need, or maybe you do a 1-day hike into this really cool, river view area where, people can come, spend a day, take pictures. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what you're passionate about, is sharing nature with everyone else. But that's how it starts, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's something you want to do. Like, trust me, this podcast, I know is not perfect. I always seek advice, but I know it's not perfect. Neither is my blog, but I don't care because I love this avenue. I love this ability to put a message together and hopefully it can help someone else. So that's number 2. Doesn't need to be grandiose. Doesn't need to be perfect, but just do it and get it started. Number 3, depending on what you want to do, you may need capital. So coming back to that bounce house company idea I had going back 20 years. Pardon me, I'm going to pause to take another quick sip. So going back to that bounce house company idea, I got stuck with needing capital. All right. Most businesses, not all, most businesses need capital. My podcast and blog I just talked about, it's not perfect. It needed a little bit of capital. Fortunately, all this amazing recording equipment, these lights and stuff, I had a couple years ago because of another passion project. So I didn't have to invest in that. But hosting a website, buying a domain, that takes a little bit of work. Building a website, a little bit of work, a little bit of capital. But it doesn't need, not everything you do is going to need a lot, but some things might need more than others. As an example, one of my other passion projects I talked about just briefly above, and I'm bringing it right back full circle, as I'm starting a money services business. I am starting a Bitcoin ATM company. Someone puts in cash into a machine, they get Bitcoin sent to their wallet. That's a small concept, not really going into it here. The reason why I'm bringing it up though is that business did require a lot more capital than starting this podcast and blog. So do your research as you're looking into these things to figure out maybe you need a little money to start in these passion projects. Nothing is free out there, right? So even volunteer work, as I use that example of volunteering out in nature as a, preservation society, you might have some out-of-pocket stuff for like really good boots and pants and jeans or shirts, whatever. I'm not a big nature person, as you can tell. But ultimately, that's number 3, is understand some of these things might require more capital than others, but don't let it stop you. I throw it there because being realistic, stuff costs money. Nothing is free. So just throwing it out there, some things will require more cost than others. Just keep that in mind. But you want to understand and do research to get that knowledge, because it leads to tip number 4. If you need help, ask for it. So throwing the first one right at the get-go, like my money services business, it takes money, right? I can't always do that on my own. I might have to ask for help. So for number 4 is understand you might need financial assistance or you might need just advice. But understand you're going to need to ask for some type of help, especially if you're doing something you haven't done before, or especially if you're doing something that you're super passionate about and just want to get better. Bottom line is none of us woke up this morning with all the knowledge we need to succeed in life every single day. If that were the case, there'd be a lot more success stories out there. So just be ready to ask for help. Understand who's in your circle that you can ask for help. If it's financial, if it's just advice, reach out to folks. Reach out to me. I'm going to do a quick plug for my consulting business at the end. Email me, reach out to me. Maybe I can give you some business financial advice. I've been doing it for the past 10 years, right? For other people. Maybe it's friends, maybe it's family. Maybe you have a mentor or want to find a mentor in the niche or the passion that you're working on. Find them, leverage them, get that advice. Maybe you have a coach, maybe you have a work friend. But ultimately, if you need help, ask for it. Search on the website, reach out, on a blog, reach out on comments on videos, but get the help. But the one little caveat I want to give you with this number 4 of asking for help is be careful that the advice you get and the tips you get doesn't dissuade you from continuing what you want to do. This will get into number 5 and 6, but some of these folks within your circle might not understand this passion. Some of these folks in the circle might not be willing to risk what you would. So as you're asking for help, be careful that when you get unsolicited advice, especially if that unsolicited advice is coming from a person that is lending you some of that money to get started, right? Talked about you're going to need help, whether it's financial advice or financial assistance, period. The minute you take money from someone, be ready to receive a bunch of unsolicited advice. Throwing it out there. That's number 4, ask for help. Number 5, things will be scary, but they should be scary good. I am not afraid to tell you right now that I am afraid more often than I am not. Definitely more afraid than I would like to admit. Doesn't matter if it's me putting myself out there with these videos / podcasts, or putting myself out there as an author, ready to be critiqued, because the bottom line is the minute you expose yourself, got to be ready for criticism as well. Or even in my doctoral program, my dissertation, I know I submitted my first draft today, but I know I'm going to have probably 2, 3, number 4, first draft of even just my first chapter. Things will be scary, but they should be scary good. I've talked about in some of my other podcasts. If you have not heard of them yet, go back. I talk about fear and transition, and I talk about fear being defined as false events appearing real, right? Don't let fear stop you. So just because you're doing something different, that fear, that little bit of fear, that little bit of scare should be something that's more exciting rather than dissuading you from your goals. Ultimately, nothing comes easy if it's worth it. So just know things might get a little scary, especially as you're getting deeper into whatever it be it a new job, a hobby, a business. And you're like, man, this is going to be real. Oh my gosh, I just leveraged a lot of debt to be able to get this business started. This is now becoming a reality. Yes, it's okay to be fearful. Yes, it's okay to be scared, but it shouldn't stop you. Those should be great emotional reactions that keep you on your toes. And if anything, that's where you should rewind back to number 4 as you're going through some of these things and you're like, man, I think I need to stop what I'm doing because fears may be getting a hold of you. Go back to number 4 and ask for help. Talk to friends, get a mentor, get a coach to reinvigorate you so that you can keep going. Number 6, just because someone hasn't heard of what you want to do, or maybe they don't even understand it, doesn't mean you should stop. I threw out there that I started a money services business, a Bitcoin ATM business. Trust me when I say there are lots of credits out there about Bitcoin, period. I'm not dealing in Bitcoin. Mine is more transactional, converting cash to Bitcoin. That's it. I don't invest in it. Doesn't matter my niche in the market. People don't understand it. Trust me when there's critics out there. Trust me when I say that not everybody thinks it's a great business idea. But I don't care. It's a passion. I think I enjoy doing it. It's brand new. It is scary, but it's scary good. But I'm also logical in my approach to launching that business. I control how much I'm willing to spend. I will not let it destroy my livelihood. And I do think it's the future. Now, it might be the future 10 years from now where it's a little bit more mainstream, but I think it has legs. I think there's something there. But just because other people might not have heard about it is not going to keep me from doing it, especially when I'm doing it logically. I'm finding mentors. I'm getting advice that's appropriate, and I'm keeping it well within my means. So again, just because someone hasn't heard of it or doesn't believe in it or doesn't understand it doesn't mean you should do it. Maybe your thing is NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which are huge right now. I think there's a huge avenue for that going forward. That's not the topic of today, but maybe it'll become a podcast, or if anything, reach out to me one-on-one via my website. I think non-fungible tokens have a huge history in front of us. I don't think they're going away. Maybe it's the Bitcoin industry. You want to find a job in Bitcoin. Doesn't matter if people don't understand it. Give it a shot. Or maybe something that you want to create that's brand new to market that no one's ever done before. Don't let other people's advice or their fear stop you. Number 7, don't back down when the going gets tough. Talked about it going to be scary. Talked about things that maybe people haven't heard of. There will always be a time that you face starting something new, job, business, hobby, when depending on how things are going, you're going to have to decide if you have to close up shop. I did it in my business for the CrossFit gym. Ran it for 2 years. It was the worst economic downturn we've had in the past decade. I had to close up shop. Bottom line, it happens. But hard does not always mean impossible. 2010, that example, I had to close up shop. The money services business, my Bitcoin ATM business, is taking me a full year to even get that to the point where I'm basically 90% there and ready to launch, because it was obstacle after obstacle, regulation, licensing after licensing. But I stuck with it. It wasn't impossible. It was just hard. Here's the interesting thing. Most people give up at hard. Most people want things to come easy and smooth. The bottom line is, if you're doing anything that's worth it, it's not going to be easy. And if you're doing something that maybe could lead to this next big thing, or you're getting early as an early adopter into some new innovation, it's not going to be easy. And quite frankly, only time will tell whether or not what you're doing is visionary, and people are going to come back going, man, that person, they knew, and I can't believe they had the right idea. Only time will tell if that's how people look at you, or that you look at it and go, man, that was kind of a little foolish move. Doesn't matter. It's going to get hard, but don't let that stop you. Keep going. Number 8, and the last one for the tips. And I talked about this before. Celebrate your wins. You have to. If it's a hobby and you got this new volunteer gig and you had to apply for it and be selected and now you're in it, celebrate your wins, because you chose a passion. You pursued something and you got it. Pause, stop, go, man, I'm so grateful that I stuck with it. If it's a business and you're launching it and you find all these obstacles, but finally day one you're launching and you're open, you're like, man, celebrate those wins. There will always be worries tomorrow. There will always be no lack of things to focus on, to improve upon, but it won't always be easy to recognize your wins. So when you do get them, celebrate them. They'll keep you motivated. I told you, I launched Line Consulare, and this is the plug, sorry, but you're listening to me, so y'all get to listen to this example. I've been sitting on Line Consulare as a concept for 3 months. I bought the domain, lineconsulare.com, 3 months ago and never launched. That title, that website, is going to be the focal point for my consulting business that I'm launching. But it's in partnership with my wife. We're going to actually create like learning management systems, learning content for leadership and management. But I've been sitting on it because I just didn't develop it. I wanted to get it perfect. But ultimately I realized like I had to stop and just get it going. So for those of you out there that are listening to this, I'm going to drop a link in the description, but also visit it. It's www.lion.consulare, consulere.com. Check it out. It's bare bones. It is not perfect. You'll see there's on one click, it says under construction. But the bottom line is, we got it. I got it launched. I have a place to send people. I have a place to send potential clients. I have a place to send people that might be interested in learning more about me, about what my company can offer to them. That's huge. Like, I literally fist bumped my wife the other night. We're like, bam, like we got it. Like, I know it's not done. It's not perfect, but it's out there now. There's no taking it back, but we're there. Like we overcome that obstacle. So celebrate those wins. As I look to wrap this up, if you need someone out there to talk to, hit me up. Visit my Facebook page, my fan page. You can direct message me, Go to elisecho.com if that's how you found me. Go to lionconsolare.com. All this stuff will be in the description below. But if you're looking at your circle at that tip number 4 and you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. I will never attest to know all the answers, but I'll tell you what, my passion is helping people. And so I won't give up until I've done everything I can to help folks that reach out to me. So for closing remarks, first of all, thank you for listening to my podcast. If you're watching me on YouTube, thanks very much. Wherever you're at, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Facebook, same thing. Really goes a long way. Drop a comment in either media that you find me in. Like I said out there previously, you can find me on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Really, your support means a lot to me. I see comments, I respond to comments. Just communicate with me, especially if you need some help. Based on tip number 4, reach out to friends and family, get the help that you need to. Visit my website, elisecho.com. Before I go, one last call to action. Share my messages with people, whether it's my YouTube video, my podcast, the Facebook fan page. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter. If there's a message out there that resonates with you, my challenge to you is find one person, share one of my messages, help them out. It really starts to build a community, and it goes a long way for me as well. Anyhow, that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's message. Find me, comment on me, like me, subscribe to me, give me feedback, but I appreciate your time today. Thanks very much.